All right, everyone, I had a Pluto in Libra come up over the break and give me a very nice example, so I just want to briefly mention it. Not you, but we had another one lose her job. But I had a Pluto in Libra who's going through her Pluto in Capricorn square, and she just had, it was you, right? Yes. She just got a very nice promotion. And so all of those positive things that can come about, they came about through her Pluto, transiting Pluto, making a waxing square to her natal Pluto in the midst of this T-square. So someone else asked me over the break, I don't look at any aspect as a negative aspect. Any aspect can be negative, any aspect can be positive. And as this woman shared with me, and I'm not remembering your name, and you don't have your name tag on, it's okay. Anyway, as she shared, she had been trying to do her work, knowing that this Pluto square was coming up, knowing that this T-square was coming up. And it came up for her, and she got a beautiful job promotion. So just want you to remember, it's, again, not all cut and dried. The other thing from this example is, many times, and this is generic, when you see a natal 10th house Pluto, through this Pluto in Capricorn transit for all of us, through anybody who has Pluto transiting in the 10th house, when the career is blocked, when our ability to achieve our goals is blocked in the outer world, we must go to the Cancer polarity and learn whatever emotional lessons we are avoiding. Remember, any planetary archetype works through its polarity, and the polarity point of this Pluto in Capricorn is Cancer, and that's the evolutionary intent, bringing back the community, going back inward to emotional self-reliance, working through our emotional lessons, finding our inner security, will then allow us to go back out into that outer world and see those changes reflected there. All right, now as we move on to the archetype of Aquarius, I get a little bit of feedback once in a while. So Aquarius is that Uranian archetype because Uranus rules Aquarius and the 11th house. And so everything that Mark has been speaking about off and on throughout these last 4 days is what's involved in that Aquarian archetype. Aquarius, Uranus, and the 11th house is the archetype of the individuated unconsciousness. And again, the 3 types of information that each of us have in our own unconsciousness that's unique to us is the past in all its detail. Mark calls it far memory or long-term memory. I call it past lives. It's all our past lives. It's all the unconscious stuff from our childhood. It's all there in Uranus. And we can access it in hypnotherapy. We can access it in regressions. We can access it in a variety of different ways. It wants to come out on its own. The archetype of Uranus, Aquarius, in the 11th house is also everything we suppress via Saturn. When Saturn doesn't want to deal with it and it pushes it away and it doesn't want to think about it and ignores it, that goes down below the surface into Uranus, Aquarius, in the 11th house. That also contains the blueprints of the future. And again, I discussed that a little bit earlier. How you pay attention to that element of repetition, to the future-orientated messages that tell you what is coming ahead. So Uranus, Aquarius in the 11th house is always where we can get our own information about the direction we are trying to go, the future. Now, one of the things that's also happening with this archetype, and it's been happening for quite a while, and it's because of the distortions from natural law. When we, eons of time ago, when we lived back in our more natural communities in more tribal ways, the shamans would be there to heal the trauma immediately. The trauma wasn't allowed to be extended or suppressed or ignored. like we do now. So the shamans would be there to heal the trauma immediately, and we had different concepts of, moving in and out of form, in and out of these physical bodies. We didn't see the death and the loved one leaving as traumatic as we do today, because we could recognize the consciousness that it would exist no matter what, whether it was in form or out of form. And so with all of this distortion from natural laws, the archetype of trauma has increased and increased. Jeffrey used to say that approximately 85% of souls are born with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And that exists in the archetype of Uranus. 85. And I sometimes think that number's low. Because if we look at everybody in this room, is there anybody in this room who is not traumatized? Oh, Uranus and Gemini has to just tell us. Be contrarian. We could test you. So the archetype of Aquarius is also always trying to decondition and liberate itself, Aquarius following Capricorn. And sometimes that liberation process it's too much. It's traumatizing because it's too radical. We don't look at change in a positive way. It's the conditionings of our society in the modern world, but it's also just naturally inherent within the soul with that dual desire nature, that desire to be secure. That's that desire that has us repeating the separating desires, that has us always trying to take yesterday and project it forward in order to feel secure. It's inherent in human nature. And so because of that, we want to hang out with Capricorn more than we necessarily want to hang out with Aquarius. And so we have to look at this archetype of Aquarius, 11th house Uranus, in a more positive note. We have to be able to look at change from a little more positive nature. We have to walk through the insecurities. We have to walk into that unknown future and create anew. And so this is how this whole archetype of Aquarius has gotten so caught up in the trauma. Because we have this conditioning within ourselves, we have this inherent nature within ourselves to look at trauma as to look at. I know they're getting triggered, and so let's sing that song again. So again, so we have to look at this change. We have to look at this unknown from a more positive viewpoint.